in this lesson we're going to be looking at the slope-intercept form of an equation. That equation or that form is y equals mx plus b. So this is something that you're going to be listening to a lot. You'll have it memorized. But let's talk about the format of this equation. It's very similar to the direct variation equation that we've looked at before this, y equals mx. So you have your slope or your constant of variation, which is your m. That's still going to be the case here. And now we've got an addition to this equation. The b value is going to be what we call the y-intercept, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute. So this equation again is going to represent a line on a coordinate plane. So if I had the equation y equals 1/2 x plus 2. Okay, this is an equation in slope-intercept form. In order for it to be in slope-intercept form, it has to be solved for y. So on the side of y is the only thing on that side. Now let's kind of look at the right side here so we can get our two pieces of information that will explain our graph. The first thing we notice is that there's a number being multiplied to the x. The number that's multiplied to the x is your slope, or what we've looked at as rate of change or constant of variation. But typically what we're going to call it from here on out is your slope. So the slope of our line, y equals 1/2 x plus 2, is 1/2. So this line will have a slope of 1/2. The y-intercept is going to be that constant term. It's going to be the term that does not have a variable. That is going to represent where the line crosses the y-axis. So our line in this particular example will cross the y-axis at 2. So let me kind of give you a brief little overview of what that's going to look like. If this were our y-axis and our x-axis, y is 2 right there. So our line will cross the y-axis at a positive 2 because that's the y-intercept. So this equation gives you two pieces of information, but you can only get them if the equation is solved for y, meaning it's in slope-intercept form. All right, let's talk about the y-intercept. Again, we talked about it being the point where our line is going to cross that y-axis. So I'm going to very informally draw a coordinate plane. Please keep in mind that the y-axis is that vertical axis, the axis that goes up and down. So the axis we're really going to be paying attention to when we talk about the y-intercept is going to be that one right there. Y-intercept means that's where our line is going to cross that y-axis. The x-coordinate of any y-intercept will be 0. So for instance, going back to that y-intercept of 2, the ordered pair for that point is 0 for x, 2 for y. Any y-intercept point will have 0 as their x-coordinate. Let's say we had a y-intercept of a -1. That ordered pair is 0, -1. So it's very important to know that if you have a y-intercept, x will always be 0. Let's now look at a few examples where we will write an equation in slope-intercept form when we're given some information about the line. First example, write a slope-intercept equation, so we know we're going to put it in this format, y equals mx plus b, for a line with a slope of 3 and a y-intercept of -6. So think about what they gave you. Slope of 3, y-intercept of -6. So I'm going to kind of jot down what we know from the information. Slope, we always, or we have been saying, is going to be represented with that m. So m has been given to us. It's a -3. Y-intercept of -6. Y-intercept is going to be always labeled with that lowercase b. So they also gave us the value for b. All we need to do to write this equation is take that -3 and put it in place of m, take the -6, put it in place of b. Since that's a -6, we can just write that as a -6. So let's write our equation with our new pieces of information, slope and y-intercept, in. Y is going to be equal to the slope times x. So that's going to be -3 times x, and then plus our y-intercept. Now, plus -6 is typically not seen. That's not simplified. When you add a negative, the best and simplified way to write that would just be -6. So if your y-intercept is negative, just put it as a minus. So this would be our equation to represent this situation. A slope of -3, a y-intercept of -6. All right, let's look at this example. Write a slope-intercept equation for a line that has a y-intercept of 4. That's good information to know. We also know they want it in slope-intercept form, so they're going to want it in the y equals mx plus b form. And our line is going to go through these 2 points. Well, if you notice, we weren't given the slope. So the slope is what we need to find. We do know what b is. B is 4. It's m, the slope, that we're kind of missing. So we're going to find that slope value from those 2 ordered pairs that are given. So what you want to do is use your slope formula to find your slope. Remember, you have x1, y1, x2, y2. That's going to be 5 minus 2 over 1 minus a -3. So we get 3/4. Our slope is 3/4. So now we know what the y-intercept is, and we know that the slope is 3/4. So now I can take these 2 numbers, plug them into my equation, and I'll have my equation for this situation. So y is going to be equal to m times x, and we just found out that m is 3/4. So 3/4 x plus b, and our y-intercept is 4. Since it's positive 4, we'll just do plus 4. Okay? So what that means is this particular line is going to cross at 4 on the y-axis and have a slope of 3/4. We will get into graphing these as well as writing equations from real-world situations when we get into class.